Let's jump into this first story. Now, this was difficult because we have a couple big stories. We have Democrat press secretary for Katie Hobbs, Jocelyn Berry, resigning. But we also had news earlier in the day from Matt Walsh. I think most of you know who he is. If you don't, he is a prominent conservative commentator. He put together the documentary, along with the Daily Wire crew and many others, What is a Woman? Challenging Gender Ideology. He was supposed to speak at Washington and Lee University, but due to threat, let me just read the tweet for you. He says, sadly, I have to postpone my speech at Washington and Lee University due to threats against my family and other serious security concerns in Nashville this week. I cannot leave my family and fly to another state. I hate to push the event off, but my wife and kids come first. I intend to continue my spring college tour as planned in the coming weeks. The event at Washington and Lee will be rescheduled as soon as possible. The threats to my family only make me more determined to fight this evil. I will not let any harm come to my children or my wife, and I will not let these psychopaths scare me into silence. Neither of those things will ever happen, I promise you. In case it wasn't clear, this has nothing to do with Washington and Lee University. The event was coming together well and everything was perfectly fine. May have been some protests planned, but nothing major. The potential danger is at home, which is why I need to be at home. So things are getting absolutely crazy. We have many conservative commentators banned on Twitter still for calling out this Trans Day of Vengeance. And it's really weird. I was thinking about this earlier. Obviously, we had this tragedy that happened on Monday. This psychopath goes into a school/church, kills children and faculty members. And then what do we see? There's a viral video going around, Libs of TikTok posted, of a trans activist telling people to get weapons and to go physically beat people. I've never seen anything like this. Typically, when let's go back in time when we had Andy Ngo get attacked. You actually had the corporate press come out and be like, okay, this goes too far. Now you actually have the corporate press coming out and saying, well, the real victims here are the trans activists, despite the fact they're sending death threats to the family of Matt Walsh and planning a violent action, a day of vengeance starting Friday into Saturday and Sunday. I call it a day of vengeance, but now they're saying it's going to be 3 days. They're saying it's still going to be happening.
But this is backwards. I just don't understand this, that it's everybody else's fault that this individual went out. I mean, right now, the person that perpetrated this crime and killed 6 people is being equated to a victim. What is going on? I don't understand what has happened in this country. We are literally less than 48 hours from a major tragedy, and somehow the mainstream media has turned the person that perpetrated this crime, taken 6 innocent lives, into somehow of a victim, and we're sitting around having this debate, and my mind is blown. Going, what is going on?
How old are you?
51.
51. So here's what I think is happening. The older generation that was raised off the internet they have a similar view of the country, be it left or right, liberal or conservative. But the millennials who are raised online are hyper polarized.
Yeah.
So the reason why I think we're seeing this happen is that millennials are starting to take over these industries, be it media or otherwise, and they are hyper polarized. Their world is so dramatically different from your world. As soon as they take the reins of the editor-in-chief position or the executive editor position, start making decisions on how articles get framed or what stories get covered, this is what you start to see.
I think you're right. I mean, that's exactly, there is this dichotomy in the country right now where young and old see the world differently. It's about patriotism, who views the country as patriotic. I mean, the poll that came out the other day in the Wall Street Journal that shocked the heck out of me, 38% of the country views patriotism. And I literally, a bunch of people I knew said, well, I wasn't shocked at this. And I said, you weren't shocked. I get the division. But there was something that I thought united us, and that was being able to say, okay, I'm an American. And I mean, maybe I didn't think it was 70% as I used to, but I thought maybe it'd be in the low 60s, 38%. And I think that you put your finger on it, Tim. This idea that there's a huge divide between whether we grew up with the internet or without it. And that's, and I mean, I see it every day, but I don't know, maybe this is what's manifested, that the idea that you can see a tragedy like this and then say, here's the person who perpetrated it is also a victim. And I was reading some of the statements today and from some of these groups that you mentioned earlier, and they were like, there are 2 victims in this. And I'm like, no, there's not. Yeah. It is never acceptable. You took out innocent lives.
Mm-hmm. It makes no sense why someone whatever the reason may be, would kill 9-year-olds. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense.
No,
but what
or
they're saying
any year olds.
What the leftist activists are posting on Twitter is that they were future fascists. I'm not exaggerating. Andy No has covered this. They are posting that there are people on the left saying that it's a good thing because the future fascists were stopped. But this is the point. You're 51. When your demographic, when Gen Xers and Boomers are no longer in control of the system, either through retirement or passing on, this country will fall into abject civil war.
If we take this shit seriously. I mean, if people are saying crazy stuff online and we're like, oh, he said he was a dog. Everyone look, he said he was a dog. Oh no. Like, it's a terrible weak defense to say that this person is a victim somehow. Sure. Obviously, they were drugged by someone. I mean, in that way they were victimized.
But Ian, the issue is the corporate press is writing puff pieces for this person.
Some of it.
It's not about, and that's, as Sean says, unheard of.
But this isn't. Look, I get the left-wing groups maybe or the left-wing media. There was a piece in NBC News.
Yep.
This isn't some fringe organization or some fringe media piece. This is one of the three major broadcast organization that is somehow giving a platform of sympathy to a killer.
Yeah.
Yep.
I think you have to draw parallels to the relationship between religious radicalization and the online community. You'll hear people say, I remember being taught this in college, that you'll have migrants from move to France, and they are the first generation of their family to go to school there, but they don't feel like they are French, and they don't feel like they are part of their heritage. They're not from their country, and so they look online for acceptance and community, and they're more likely to become radicalized that way. And radicalization often calls for violence to carry out your beliefs. And so this is something that I was taught over and over again at my university. This is a pattern that we see with people who are radicalized. And it's the same thing that's happening with people who grow up in extreme gender ideology. They seek it out online, they feel uncomfortable, they look for community, and the community says, you are being attacked at every turn and you need to make sacrifices, you have to be willing to act on this.
I think something that many conservatives and many in the older generation haven't asked themselves is, when the people, these millennials and Gen Zers who hate this country, they hate it with a passion, when they start taking over companies, what will this country look like? So a few years ago, Colin Kaepernick took a knee during the national anthem, and it was a controversy. Within the span of only 2 or so years, every major sports team, every major athlete was told to take a knee. That is a culture revolution overnight. And only now there are athletes who are saying no to this, and they are the controversial ones now. Mm-hmm. Think about that flip. It is going to keep happening because this is what I think people don't realize. In 2015, Donald Trump starts running for office. A child who is 10 years old will be voting 10 years old then, who had no understanding of politics. Their developmental years is all being raised by a media lying about Donald Trump, lying about the conservatives in this country and the right, and now they're going to vote for the first time in 2024. That degree of influence is going to keep getting more and more dominant, and as Gen Xers and Boomers retire and pass on, give it 10, 20 years, and you're going to have two different factions in this country. You already do, but here's the issue. Among millennials and Gen Z, the bifurcation is clear. Far left extremists are calling for more violence in response to what happened on Monday. Something would be shocking. I mean, we wouldn't tolerate this 10 years ago. Everybody would come out and be like, okay, look, man, we know we have our differences, but this goes too far. Not anymore. And it's because the younger generation is gaining more and more power in industry. That's the natural flow of things. It has nothing to do with people becoming radicalized. It has everything to do with young people already being radicalized on these platforms. Of course, that's why we see in schools these teachers trying to teach critical race theory and radical gender ideology, because they are trying to indoctrinate them at a young age. They will grow up. They plant those seeds. They put the glitter in the carpet that never comes out. And those kids don't need any more guidance. So give them 10 years, it's done.
You know, it's funny. For the longest time, I had this belief that one of the mistakes that conservatives made was not going into high school and colleges, right? And then I said part of the problem is that students aren't exposed to conservative ideas and thinkers. And then we see what's going on. And I saw this myself. After I left the White House, I went to 20 college campuses. and I saw firsthand the idea of getting shouted down, right? And I know Matt is saying that he's not going to Washington Lee not because of them, but because of another. But the goal right now of the left is to not allow those voices to be heard, whether it's me and all these authors at Brave Books to be able to go in to talk to kids, or people like Matt Walsh and some of the other folks to go to college campuses. The idea is to not allow these kids that you're talking about who are going to vote to even know that there is another point of view. We want to shut them out. But the idea that you were also talking about, this idea that these folks are talking about violence, something that the left used to abhor. They're now talking about this weekend, getting guns and going out and getting people. And again, where is the leadership from the top saying this is unacceptable? The president of the United States has been asked to comment 2 days in a row. Not only has he joked about it, but he hasn't condemned the violence that the left is talking about coming out and seeking retribution now.
Well, because they're his people.
Exactly.
I don't think Joe Biden is like a staunch leftist, but he gains power from these groups, and they are willing to tolerate him if it destroys the right. That's why many of these, you had some prominent leftists make videos saying you got to vote for Biden back in 2020, and it was weird. He's like a corporate establishment politician, but he's closer to them. So he knows he gets some benefit from their politics, which is why Democrats pander to them. So what does he care?
All right, he's a vessel.
It works. It works for him.
Right, he's just a vessel. He knows, hey,
did you hear about Merrick Garland ordering marshals not to arrest the protesters?
Yeah. Right.
Because it benefits them.
Right. I mean, the funny part is when he gets asked about these slides that were instructing the marshals, he says, I don't know anything about it. Well, you were the guy that claimed just a while ago that you were the ones who instructed the marshals. So on the one hand, whatever it was a year ago, you're claiming you were the one who ordered them. You had to give the order. But when it came to the instructions to the marshals, you knew nothing about that. The instructions that said, let the protesters do what they want. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's funny how he only knows so much.
Thanks for watching this clip from the Timcast IRL podcast. Hang out with us live Monday through Friday at 8 p.m. and become a member over at timcast.com for uncensored, members-only shows exclusive. Thanks for hanging out, and we'll see you all next time.